Good morning. Welcome to my thought for the day. Today I'm taking a verse out of the parable of the sower, or rather the explanation that Jesus gave of the parable of the sower. It's to be found in Matthew chapter 13. And if you get a chance today to read it afresh, the parable is told in verses 1 to 9, and then the interpretation or the explanation is verses 18 to 23. In that story, Jesus talks about the effect of the word and how it grows in lives. And he uses the illustration of the sower sowing the seed. You know it very well. The seed fell on various kinds of ground and responded appropriately in the conditions in which it was found. And it's all about the seed, the person who hears the word of the kingdom and responds to it in some way or other. And it's the seed among the thorns that I want to talk about. In verse 7, Jesus, simply in his telling of the story, says, "Other seeds fell upon thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them." Now we know what that's like. Anybody who is any kind of gardener, it's amazing how cultivated seed is often overwhelmed by weeds or thorns, and then it doesn't do very well at all. It doesn't reach a point where it produces any fruit, any product. So when Jesus interprets it, he says in verse 22, "As for that was sown among thorns, this is he who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the delight in riches choke the word, and it proves unfruitful." Very simple. Here is the seed, but in each of these cases, they are people who hear the word. But the cares of the world and the delight in riches choke the word, and it proves unfruitful. The cares of the world can be overwhelming. There's so much to do, isn't there? There's so many things to see to, so many things to focus on, so many things that need to be done. And at the bottom of the pile, the last thing we think about when we've got a list of things we've got to do is spending time with God and thinking about the word. And the word that has been sown is choked out by the affairs of life, by the cares of the world and the delight in riches. But I'm focusing on the cares in the world because this is what I'm remembering today. Someone I met in hospital when I was visiting on a particular ward, and I met this man who was probably in his 60s or 70s. He had children and grandchildren, and I visited him simply because he'd come into the hospital with a problem, a serious illness, and I simply visited him to give him the opportunity to talk about it to someone who was not family and who was not medical, so that he could just get off his chest his response to this sudden event that had happened in his life. And he told me, I said I was the chaplain, so he knew I was a Christian, and he volunteered to me what had happened. He said, the thing that worries me is that when I was a teenager, I went to youth group at the church, and I went on a summer camp, and I gave my life to the Lord, and I started off well, but then I got married, and we had children, and I was busy at work, and I didn't go to church, and I've never done anything about it. And that's an example of someone where the cares of the world choked the word. He got involved in all the things that he had to get involved with. When you work, there is far less time. I mean, I'm retired now, and I'm amazed how little time there is to do the things that need to be done. We never have enough time. It's the one quantity that we never seem to have enough of. Because there's always something that needs doing, something that needs attention, something in this physical world in which we live that has to be done. And we can sometimes feel overwhelmed with the number of things that do need to be done. And then perhaps we have a problem arise and we simply don't know what to do about it. And we have to ask for help. And some of us find that very difficult to ask for help. But in that man's life, the cares of the world had overwhelmed him. And I was able to say to him, it's not too late. You know you've neglected the Lord. You know what's happened. And let me tell you the story that Jesus told the people about the prodigal son, the son that went away from the father and lived his life without reference to the father at all. And then he realized what he was doing and he came home and the father welcomed him home. The father did not spend a long time telling him off for what he'd done. He simply was waiting for the son to come home with open arms to welcome him home. And so I reintroduced that man to God the Father through Jesus and reconciled them. It's never too late to realize that you have allowed the affairs of the world, the things you have to do, to overwhelm you and to choke out the word of God. And there's some good advice for us here in in Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. I like the authorized version, which I grew up with, which says, be careful for nothing. In my new Revised Standard Version, it says, have no anxiety about anything. But the old version said, be careful for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. So the idea of being careful, be careful for nothing. So don't let anything overwhelm you. You don't have to be full of care about anything. You don't have to be full of care for anything. Careful, don't be careful. Be careful for nothing. But the answer, when you've got lots of things to remember, lots of things to think about, lots of things to find time to do, tell God all about it. Tell God all about it. Tell him what you need doing, what you need help with, what you don't know what to do about. Don't fret about it and be anxious about it and be full of cares. But let your requests be made known to God with thanksgiving. What is that thanksgiving about? It's about thanking God that he's going to help you. Thanking God that he always has helped you. He always has been there for you. And he loves you. He knows what needs doing. Indeed, he knows the order in which those things need to be done. You might use all sorts of tools like lists. I find lists very helpful. When I've got an idea about what I need to do, I often write a list. And strangely enough, during the course of the day, I probably don't refer to the list. But when I find it at the end of the day, I find I've done everything, or perhaps everything but one of the things that's on that list. And God has reminded me himself of the things as I've needed to do them. Be careful for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Talk to him about everything. Whatever it is, whatever it is, don't let it weigh on your heart and spirit. Don't let it choke the word and make it unfruitful. None of this says that we won't have cares. None of this says that we won't have things that need doing. Nowhere in the scriptures does it tell us to be idle and not do the things that need doing. No. but we ask God for his help and we commit it to him and we don't let it choke out our spiritual life. Have a great day. Whatever cares you look after today, don't be careful about them. Or be careful about that. Oh dear. It means something different, doesn't it? I'm not asking you not to take care and to slip around and fall or anything like that. I'm just saying the old version, the old idea of careful. Don't let the cares of the world choke out the word of God in your life. Have a great day. Bye-bye for now.